The bus station smelled like diesel fuel and burnt coffee, a combination that had long since stopped bothering me. I'd been driving routes through Wyoming for 6 years now, and the Cheyenne station on Christmas Eve had become as familiar as my own living room. Most folks were already home with their families by 9 o'clock, which made the kid huddled on the bench outside all the more conspicuous. He couldn't have been more than 19, maybe 20. Dark hair fell across his forehead, half-hiding eyes that stared at nothing in particular. His jacket was too thin for a Wyoming winter, and he'd pulled his knees up to his chest, arms wrapped around them like he was trying to make himself as small as possible. A duffel bag sat beside him, faded and worn at the corners. I'd been heading to my truck, keys jingling in my hand when I spotted him. Something made me stop. Maybe it was the way he sat so still, like a deer that had heard a twig snap. Maybe it was the fact that everyone else had somewhere to go, and he clearly didn't. "Station's closing soon?" I said, approaching slowly. I kept my distance, hands visible, knowing how I must look. 6'2", weathered skin, cowboy hat, and boots that had seen better days. Not exactly the most approachable figure to a scared kid. His head jerked up. For a second, I saw something flash in his eyes. Fear, maybe? Or resignation. Up close, I could see the bruise blooming along his left cheekbone, partially hidden by his hair. His lower lip was split, the cut recent enough that it hadn't fully scabbed over. "I know," he said quietly. His voice was hoarse, like he'd been crying or shouting or both. "I'm just waiting for what?" I asked, gentler now. He looked away, jaw working. "I don't know yet." The wind picked up, cutting through the parking lot with the kind of cold that got into your bones. The kid shivered, and I made a decision that would change both our lives, though I didn't know it then. "Look, I'm Jake," I said. "I've got a ranch about 40 minutes from here. It's Christmas Eve, and nobody should spend it freezing at a bus station. Why don't you come get warm, have some food, and we can figure things out from there?" His eyes met mine again, searching. I could see him weighing his options, measuring me against whatever had brought him here. Finally, he nodded, just once. "Ethan," he said, reaching for his duffel bag. The drive to the ranch was quiet. Ethan sat pressed against the passenger door, watching the darkness beyond the window. Occasionally, I'd catch him glancing at me from the corner of his eye, like he was still deciding whether he'd made a mistake getting in my truck. I kept the radio on low, some country station playing Christmas songs, and didn't push for conversation. The ranch house came into view, lights glowing warm against the snow. It wasn't much, just a modest 2-story with a wraparound porch. But I'd built most of it with my own hands after I'd left the rodeo circuit. The barn stood nearby, and I could see the horses moving in their stalls through the open upper windows. "It's just you here?" Ethan asked as I parked. "Yeah, just me," I said. "And about 30 horses, 2 dogs, and a barn cat who thinks she runs the place." The ghost of a smile crossed his face, so brief I almost missed it. It transformed him for a moment, made him look younger, less haunted, inside. I set him up in the guest room while I made coffee and heated up some leftover stew. When he emerged, he'd washed his face, but the bruises looked even more pronounced against his clean skin. He'd changed into a fresh t-shirt, and I could see more bruises on his arms. "You want to tell me what happened?" I asked, setting a bowl in front of him. Ethan stared at the food, then picked up the spoon. For a long moment, I didn't think he'd answer. Then, quietly, "My dad found out I'm gay." The words hung in the air between us. I kept my expression neutral, reaching for my own coffee. "He give you those bruises?" Ethan nodded, not looking up. "He told me to get out. Said I wasn't his son anymore." His voice cracked slightly. My mom just stood there. Didn't say anything. Didn't try to stop him. I felt something tighten in my chest, a familiar old anger that I'd thought I'd left behind years ago. "I'm sorry that happened to you. You don't have to pretend it doesn't bother you," Ethan said, a edge of bitterness in his tone. "I know what people think. You know what your father thinks?" I corrected. "You don't know what I think." He looked up then, eyes searching my face. "What do you think?" I considered my words carefully. "I think you deserve better than being thrown out on Christmas Eve. I think you deserve a family that loves you for who you are. And I think you deserve a hot meal and a safe place to sleep." Something in his expression shifted, the defensive walls lowering just slightly. He ate in silence, and I let him be. After dinner, I showed him where the towels were, made sure he had enough blankets, and said goodnight. But as I lay in my own bed, listening to the wind howl outside, I couldn't stop thinking about the kid in my guest room. Couldn't stop seeing the bruises, the fear in his eyes, the way he'd looked when he said his mother had just stood there. I'd left home at 17 for different reasons, but I knew what it felt like to be cut loose from the only life you'd ever known. I knew what it felt like to be alone. The next morning I woke to find Ethan already up, standing on the back porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise paint the snow in shades of pink and gold. He'd found one of my old flannel shirts hanging by the door and put it on over his t-shirt. It was too big on him, sleeves rolled up several times. "Merry Christmas," I said, joining him with my own coffee. "Merry Christmas," he replied, and there was something softer in his voice now, less guarded. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the horses in the pasture. One of my dogs, a border collie named Scout, came bounding up and immediately took a liking to Ethan, pressing her nose into his hand. He crouched down, scratching behind her ears, and I saw that ghost of a smile again. "You ride?" I asked. "Never have," Ethan admitted. "Always wanted to learn, though." "Well, if you're sticking around for a bit, I can teach you." He looked up at me, surprise evident in his face. "You want me to stay?" "I could use the help," I said, which was partly true. "And you could use some time to figure out your next move. Seems like it might work out for both of us." Taya stayed. What I'd thought would be a few days turned into a week, then 2. He proved to be a quick learner, picking up ranch work with an eagerness that surprised me. Each morning he'd be up before dawn, meeting me in the barn to help with feeding and mucking stalls. His hands, soft at first, began to callous and strengthen. We fell into an easy rhythm. I taught him how to groom the horses, how to check their hooves, how to read their moods. He was gentle with them, patient in a way that made me think he understood what it meant to be skittish, to need careful handling. "This is Rosie," I said one afternoon, introducing him to a sorrel mare I'd rescued from a bad situation 6 months prior. "She doesn't like men much. Previous owner wasn't kind to her." Ethan approached slowly, hand extended, letting her catch his scent. "Hey, beautiful girl," he murmured. "Nobody's going to hurt you here." Rosie's ears flicked forward, and after a long moment, she stretched her neck out, snuffling at his palm. I felt something warm settle in my chest watching them. It had taken me 3 months to get Rosie to trust me, and here was Ethan, earning it in minutes. "You've got a gift," I told him. He ducked his head, that hint of a smile appearing. "They can tell when someone understands." In the evenings, we'd sit in the living room, fire crackling, and talk. At first, our conversations stayed surface level, favorite movies, books, music, but gradually, as January melted into February, the walls came down further. "I knew when I was 14, Ethan said one night, staring into his mug of hot chocolate. "There was this boy in my English class, Daniel. He had these ridiculous dimples. And every time he smiled, I felt like I couldn't breathe." I listened. "Letting him talk? I spent years trying to pray it away," he continued. "Tried to make myself normal. Dated a girl junior year, just to prove I could—" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I was miserable, and so was she. When I finally told my parents, I thought maybe they'd understand, that they loved me enough to accept it. Their failure to love you properly isn't a reflection of your worth, I said quietly. Ethan looked at me, eyes shining with unshed tears. How do you know about all this? I took a breath, weighing how much to share. I was married once. To a woman, Emily. Met her on the rodeo circuit. Fell in love with the idea of having a normal life. She was kind and beautiful, and I thought maybe that would be enough. What happened? I realized I was being unfair to both of us, I said. She deserved someone who loved her the way she needed to be loved, and I deserved to stop lying to myself. We divorced 5 years ago. It was hard, but it was right. She's remarried now, happy. We still send Christmas cards. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Are you gay? Yeah, I said the word. Coming easier than it used to. Took me until I was 32 to admit it, but yeah. Something shifted in the air between us. It was like a door had opened, letting in light neither of us had realized we'd been missing. Ethan sat back, processing, and I could see 100 questions forming behind his eyes. Does anyone around here know? He asked. Some do, some don't. I don't advertise it, but I don't hide it either. Most folks around here judge you by your work and your word. The rest doesn't matter as much as you'd think. I wish my dad thought that way. Your dad's loss, I said firmly. He threw away a good son because he couldn't see past his own prejudice. That's on him, not you. As winter gave way to early spring, I noticed changes in myself that I couldn't quite explain. I started looking forward to morning chores because it meant time with Ethan. I found myself watching him when he didn't know I was looking. The way he'd tilt his head when listening to the horses. The concentration on his face when he was learning something new. The rare, genuine laugh that would burst out when one of the dogs did something ridiculous. It was dangerous territory, and I knew it. He was 19, I was 37. He'd been through trauma, was still healing from his family's rejection. The last thing he needed was me developing feelings that would complicate an already complicated situation, but knowing that didn't stop my heart from beating faster when he'd lean close to look at something I was showing him. Didn't stop the warmth that spread through my chest when he'd smile at me over morning coffee. Didn't stop the way I'd lie awake at night, hyper-aware that he was just down the hall. One afternoon in March, we were working with a young gelding I'd been training. Ethan was in the round pen, getting the horse used to him, when his foot slipped in the mud. He went down hard, and the gelding spooked, dancing sideways. I was over the fence before I'd consciously decided to move. Putting myself between Ethan and the horse, catching the lead rope and talking the gelding down. When the horse had calmed, I turned to Ethan, who was sitting in the mud, looking more surprised than hurt. You okay? I asked, offering my hand. Yeah, just my pride that's bruised, he said, taking my hand. I pulled him up, and suddenly we were standing very close. Mud streaked his jeans and shirt, and there was a smudge on his cheek. His hand was still in mine, warm and solid. For a moment, neither of us moved. I could see his pulse jumping in his throat. See the way his eyes widened slightly. I stepped back, releasing his hand, putting safe distance between us. Let's get you cleaned up, that night. Lying in bed, I had to face what I'd been avoiding for weeks. I was falling for Ethan. Maybe he had already fallen, and it was the worst possible thing that could happen. Spring arrived in earnest, bringing with it new foals and longer days. Ethan had been with me for 3 months, and the scared kid from the bus station had transformed into someone stronger, more confident. He moved around the ranch like he belonged there, and maybe he did. I'd stopped thinking of him as temporary, though I knew that was dangerous too. We were repairing fence line on the east pasture when Ethan brought up his future. "I've been thinking," he said, hammering in a post, "about maybe taking some online classes. Getting my degree." "That's good," I said, meaning it. "What are you interested in? Veterinary medicine, maybe? Or animal science?" He paused, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I'd still help around here, obviously, just ... I need to be working toward something, you know?" Pride swelled in my chest. "I think that's a great idea. You're a natural with the animals." He smiled. "And God help me," my heart stuttered. He'd gotten some sun over the past weeks, bringing out freckles I'd never noticed before. His hands were calloused now, strong from ranch work, and he'd filled out some with regular meals and hard labor. He looked healthy. "Happy even, Jake," he said, and I realized I'd been staring. "Yeah. Thank you. For everything. For taking a chance on some random kid at a bus station." His voice was thick with emotion. "You saved my life that night. You know that, right?" "You'd have been fine," I said, uncomfortable with the weight of his gratitude. "No," he said firmly, "I wouldn't have. I was out of money, out of options. I'd been sitting at that station for 6 hours trying to figure out if I had the courage to." He trailed off, but the implication hung heavy between us. My stomach dropped. "Ethan, I'm okay now," he said quickly. "I am. Because of you. Because you gave me a reason to believe things could get better." I didn't know what to say to that. So I did what I always did when emotions got too heavy. I went back to work, driving in fence posts with more force than necessary. That evening, we had visitors. My neighbor Sarah stopped by with her son, Tyler. Tyler was 22, home from college for the summer, and I watched as his eyes lit up when he saw Ethan. "Tyler?" "This is Ethan," I said, trying to ignore the twist in my gut. "He's been helping me out around the ranch." "Nice to meet you," Tyler said, flashing a perfect smile. He was objectively handsome, tall, athletic, with the kind of easy charm that came from never having been hurt. "You go to school around here?" "Not yet," Ethan said. "I'm looking into online programs."
"That's cool."
"I'm at Colorado State. We've got a great vet program if you're interested in that kind of thing." They fell into easy conversation, and I excused myself to help Sarah with some paperwork she'd brought over. But I couldn't stop my attention from drifting to where Ethan and Tyler sat on the porch steps, talking and laughing. "Seems like a good kid," Sarah said, following my gaze. "He is," I agreed. "Tyler's single, you know," she said casually. Too casually. I looked at her sharply. Sarah had been my neighbor for years, had helped me through my divorce. She knew me better than most. "Just saying," she continued. "They seem to be hitting it off. Ethan's been through a lot. Last thing he needs is complications." Sarah hummed knowingly. "Complications." After they left, Ethan was buzzing with energy. "Tyler invited me to a bonfire next weekend. Some of his friends from college. He said there'd be other people like us there." Paused, uncertain. "Would that be okay?" "I'd get all my work done first. Don't need my permission," I said, more sharply than I intended. "You're not a prisoner here." Ethan flinched, and immediately I felt like an ass. "I just meant I know," he said quietly. I wanted to make sure you wouldn't need me for anything." "Go," I said, softer now. "Have fun. You deserve to spend time with people your own age." The week leading up to the bonfire was strange. Ethan was excited, talking about it over meals, clearly looking forward to having a social life beyond the ranch. I was supportive, encouraging, and utterly miserable. I had no right to feel this way. Ethan deserved friends, romance, a normal life with people who understood what he'd been through. Tyler was a Japriate, educated, kind. Everything I should want for Ethan. The night of the bonfire, I helped Ethan pick out clothes, forcing myself to act normal. "The blue shirt," I said, "brings out your eyes." He blushed, and I wanted to kick myself. Thanks, he said, pulling it on. How do I look? Beautiful. Perfect. Like someone I had no business wanting. Good, I managed. You look good. Tyler picked him up at 7, and I watched them drive away, feeling every one of my 37 years. Scout whined at my feet, sensing my mood. I know, girl, I said, scratching her ears. I'm being stupid. I tried to keep busy, but by 10 o'clock, I was pacing, checking my phone obsessively. By midnight, I'd convinced myself something terrible had happened. At 12:30, I heard Tyler's truck. I was on the porch before I'd consciously decided to be, watching as Ethan climbed out. He was laughing at something Tyler said, waving as the truck pulled away. Have fun? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Ethan jumped, hand over his heart. Jesus, Jake, you scared me. He climbed the porch steps, and I could smell smoke and beer on him. It was great. Everyone was so welcoming, and there was this guy, Marcus, who's studying ranch management, and we talked for hours about sustainable farming practices. That's great, I said, and meant it. Mostly. Tyler kissed me. Ethan blurted out. Everything in me went still. Oh. Yeah, it was ... nice. He said it like he was testing the word. He wants to take me out next weekend. Like, on an actual date. What did you say? Ethan looked at me, and in the porch light, I could see something conflicted in his expression. I said I'd think about it. Why? The question hung between us. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. I don't know, he said finally. It felt like I should be more excited than I was. We stood there in silence, the night air cool around us. I knew I should say something encouraging, should push him toward Tyler and a chance at happiness with someone appropriate. But the words wouldn't come. I should get to bed, Ethan said. Early start tomorrow. Yeah, I agreed. Good night. I watched him go inside, then sat on the porch steps, head in my hands. Scout came and laid her head on my knee, offering silent comfort. This couldn't continue. I couldn't keep feeling this way about someone so young, someone who trusted me to keep him safe. It wasn't fair to either of us but God. I was tired of doing the right thing when all I wanted was to pull him close and never let go. The next few weeks were torture. Tyler became a regular presence, showing up to take Ethan out or just to hang around the ranch. He was good with the horses, respectful to me, and clearly smitten with Ethan. I had no legitimate reason to dislike him, which somehow made it worse. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects that kept me busy and away from the house. I started eating dinner in town more often, putting distance between Ethan and myself. If he noticed, he didn't say anything, but I'd catch him watching me with a confused, hurt expression that made my chest ache. One Saturday in late April, I came back from town to find Tyler's truck in the driveway. Through the living room window, I could see them on the couch, Tyler's arm around Ethan's shoulders. They weren't doing anything inappropriate, just watching a movie, but something in me snapped. I stormed into the barn instead of the house, startling the horses. I grabbed a shovel and started mucking stalls that didn't need mucking. It's working with furious energy until my shoulders screamed and my hands blistered. Jake. I spun around to find Ethan in the barn doorway, backlit by the setting sun. Tyler's truck was gone. You okay? He asked, concerned.
Fine. I bit out.
Just busy. Those stalls were cleaned this morning. Well, I'm cleaning them again. Ethan moved closer, and I could see hurt flash across his face. What did I do? Nothing. You didn't do anything? Then why have you been avoiding me for 3 weeks? His voice rose, frustration breaking through. You barely talk to me anymore. You're never here. If I did something wrong, just tell me so I can fix it. You can't fix it, I said, the words erupting before I could stop them. Why not? I set down the shovel, turned to face him fully. This was it. The moment where I either lied and pushed him away for good or told the truth and risked everything. His eyes were wide, waiting, and I was so tired of fighting. "'Cause I have feelings for you," I said, the words falling like stones. Feelings I have no right to have. You're 19 years old, you've been through hell, and you trusted me to keep you safe. Instead, I broke off, running a hand through my hair. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. Ethan stood frozen, processing. The silence stretched so long I wanted to scream. "Say something," I said finally. "How long?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Does it matter?" "How long, Jake?" I sighed, defeated. "Weeks, maybe longer. I don't know. Somewhere between teaching you to ride and watching you smile at my stupid jokes. Somewhere in all those mornings in the barn and evenings by the fire. I didn't mean for it to happen, and he didn't think to tell me. What was I supposed to say?" I shot back. "You're rebuilding your life. Tyler's a good guy, age appropriate, has his whole future ahead of him. What do I have to offer? I'm 18 years older than you, set in my ways, living on a ranch in the middle of nowhere." "Maybe you could have let me decide what I want," Ethan said, his voice strengthening with anger. "Maybe you could have trusted me enough to tell me the truth, instead of pulling away and leaving me wondering what the hell I did wrong. I was trying to do the right thing, by lying. By avoiding me?" He stepped closer, and I could see tears gathering in his eyes. "You were the first person who made me feel safe, Jake. The first person who made me believe I could have a future. And then you just ... disappeared. Do you know how that felt?" The crack in his voice broke something in me. "I'm sorry," I said hoarsely. "I thought I was protecting you." "From what?" "From me. From getting attached to someone who's supposed to be taking care of you." "From I'm already attached," Ethan interrupted. "I've been attached since you stopped at that bus station. Since you brought me home and gave me a place to belong. Since you taught me about the horses and made me feel like maybe I wasn't broken after all." My breath caught. "Ethan Tyler's nice," he said. "He's funny and smart and everything I thought I should want. But when he kissed me, all I could think about was you. When I'm with him, I'm wondering what you're doing. When he holds my hand, it doesn't feel right because his hands aren't yours." The world tilted. "You don't know what you're saying?" "Stop," he said fiercely. "Stop deciding what I want. Stop treating me like I'm some fragile thing that can't handle complicated feelings. I'm not a kid, Jake. You're 19, and you think those 6 months between 19 and 20 are going to make a difference." He laughed, sharp and bitter. "Age is just a number. What matters is how we feel, how we treat each other. And right now, you're treating me like I'm not capable of knowing my own heart." We stared at each other, the air between us electric with everything unsaid and everything too honestly said. I could see the rise and fall of his chest, could count the freckles across his nose, could feel my entire future balanced on what happened in the next few seconds. "This is a bad idea," I said weakly. "Probably," he agreed. "Do you care? Did I?" I'd spent weeks fighting this, trying to do the noble thing, trying to be the responsible adult. But standing here with Ethan looking at me like I held his entire world in my hands, I couldn't remember why any of that had seemed important. "No," I admitted. "I don't think I do." Ethan closed the distance between us in 2 steps. He was close enough now that I could feel his breath, could see the silver flecks in his eyes, could reach out and touch if I dared. "And stop running," he whispered. I raised my hand slowly, giving him every chance to pull away. When he didn't, I cupped his cheek, rough calluses against smooth skin. He leaned into the touch, eyes fluttering closed, and something in my chest cracked wide open. "I don't know how to do this," I confessed. "Neither do I," he said, opening his eyes. but maybe we can figure it out together. I traced his cheekbone with my thumb, watching him shiver. What about Tyler? I'll talk to him. He's a good guy. He'll understand. Ethan's hand came up to cover mine. This is what I want, if you want it to. I want it, I said, and the admission felt like jumping off a cliff. God, I want it so much it scares me. Ethan smiled, bright and real, and I felt it like sunshine. Good, he said. Be scared with me. We stood like that for a long moment, my hand on his face, his hand covering mine, just breathing together. Outside, the sun finished setting, painting the barn in shades of orange and gold. One of the horses nickered softly, and Scout barked from somewhere near the house. Should talk about this, I said. Really talk. Set boundaries. Figure out what this means. Later, Ethan said, right now I just want to stand here with you and know that you're not going anywhere. I'm not, I promised. No more running. His smile widened, and he leaned forward slightly, a question in the movement. My heart hammered against my ribs as I bent down, closing the distance slowly. Giving us both time to change our minds, our lips met soft and tentative, testing. Ethan made a small sound in the back of his throat, and his free hand came up to grip my shirt, pulling me closer. The kiss deepened, still gentle, but gaining certainty, and I wrapped my arm around his waist, holding him like he might disappear if I let go. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against mine. Wow, he breathed. Yeah, I agreed, slightly dazed. Wow, we took things slow. Despite the kiss in the barn, despite the feelings we'd admitted, we both knew we were navigating complicated territory. That night we stayed up talking until 3 a.m, sitting on the couch with mugs of tea, Scout sprawled across our feet. I need you to tell me if this gets too much, I said. If you feel pressured or confused or like you need space, I need to know you're choosing this because it's what you want, not because you feel obligated. I want this, Ethan said firmly, but I'm also scared. I've never done this before, had a real relationship with someone I care about. And there's the age thing, which I know matters to you, even if it doesn't to me. People might talk. Let them talk, I said, surprising myself. I've spent too much of my life worrying about what other people think. The only opinions that matter are yours and mine. And what do you think? I considered the question carefully. I think we have something real here. Something worth exploring. But I also think we need to be smart about it. You should still go to school. Build a life outside this ranch. I don't want to be the reason you limit yourself. What if I want my life to include this ranch? Include you? Then I'll be grateful every day that I stopped at that bus station, I said softly. Ethan talked to Tyler the next day. I wasn't privy to the conversation, but Tyler left looking thoughtful rather than angry, which I took as a good sign. Later, Sarah called to invite me to coffee, and I knew the talk was coming. He's young, Jake, she said carefully, stirring her latte. I know. And he's been through trauma. He might be latching on to you as a safe person, rather than... I know that too, I interrupted gently. We've talked about it. We're taking things slow, being honest with each other. I'm not taking advantage of him, Sarah. I care too much about him to do that. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Tyler said he's never seen anyone look at someone the way Ethan looks at you. Said it made him realize Ethan's heart was already spoken for before Tyler even had a chance. Smart kid, your son, he is, she agreed. For what it's worth, I trust your judgment. Just be careful. Both of you. The following weeks fell into a new rhythm. Our relationship shifted in small ways, a hand on the small of his back as I passed. Lingering looks over morning coffee, sitting closer on the couch in the evenings. We kissed sometimes, soft explorations that never pushed too far. both of us content to savor each step. Ethan enrolled in online classes, throwing himself into his studies with the same dedication he brought to ranch work. I'd find him at the kitchen table late at night, poring over textbooks about animal anatomy and veterinary medicine, and feel pride swell in my chest. "Look at this," he'd say excitedly, showing me diagrams or interesting facts. I'd lean over his shoulder and he'd turn his head, stealing a quick kiss. Grinning when I'd shake my head and kiss him properly. "You're distracting," I'd tell him. "You're complaining?" He'd tease back. We talked about his family sometimes. Ethan had been working up the courage to reach out to his mother, to see if there was any possibility of reconciliation. I supported him while privately hoping they'd realize what they'd lost, and begged for his forgiveness. "I don't need them to accept me," he said one evening. "But it would be nice if they wanted to know me. The real me. You're worth knowing," I assured him. In late May, we went to a small LGBTQ community gathering in Cheyenne. It was Ethan's first time being openly himself in a group setting. I could see him shaking with nervousness as we walked in. "I'm right here," I murmured, my hand finding his. "You're safe." The evening was a revelation. Ethan bloomed surrounded by people who understood, laughing and talking with an ease I'd never seen before. A young trans woman named Jamie asked about the ranch, and Ethan talked about the horses with such passion that soon half the room was listening. "You should give tours," someone suggested. "Equine therapy for LGBTQ plus youth." I saw something light up in Ethan's eyes, and an idea began to form. On the drive home, he couldn't stop talking. "Did you hear what Jamie said? About how she wished she'd had a safe space when she was figuring things out. Jake, what if we could provide that? The ranch is big enough and we have the horses, hey?" I said, squeezing his hand. "Breathe." He laughed, giddy with excitement. "Sorry, I just felt so good to be around people who get it. And to think we could maybe help other kids who are going through what I went through. It's a beautiful idea," I said. "And we can absolutely explore it. Just maybe wait until you've finished your first semester before we take on a whole new venture." "Deal," he agreed, then fell quiet. After a moment, "Thank you for coming with me tonight." Where else would I be? I know it's not easy being out in a small community and bringing me as your partner, letting people see us together. ... It means a lot." I brought his hand to my lips, kissing his knuckles. "I'm proud to be with you. I want people to know that." That night, sitting on the porch under a sky full of stars, Ethan leaned his head on my shoulder. "I never thought I could have this," he said quietly. "Happiness. Someone who loves me for who I am." I wrapped my arm around him, holding him close. "You deserve every good thing, Ethan. Every single one." He turned his face up to mine, and I kissed him under the stars, soft and sweet and full of promise. When we finally pulled apart, his eyes were shining. "I love you," he whispered. I know it's probably too soon to say it, and maybe you're not ready to hear it, but I do. I love you. My heart expanded until it felt too big for my chest. "It's not too soon," I said hoarsely, "and I love you too. So damn much." Summer arrived in full force, bringing scorching days and warm nights. The ranch thrived under our combined care, and so did we. Ethan's confidence grew daily, his laugh becoming a regular soundtrack to my life. He'd started talking to his mother on the phone brief. Cautious conversations that left him emotionally wrung out but hopeful. "She said she misses me," he told me after one call, eyes wet with tears. "She said Dad's struggling with what happened, but she wants to understand." "That's progress," I said, pulling him into my arms. "She wants to visit, maybe in August, before the semester really gets going." He pulled back to look at me. "Would that be okay?" "Of course," I said, even as anxiety twisted in my gut. "This is your home. You can invite whoever you want." Privately, I worried. What if seeing his mother made Ethan realize what he'd given up? What if she convinced him to come back, to try to be the son his father wanted? What if I lost him? "You're doing that thing," Ethan said, touching my forehead where tension had carved lines. "What thing?" "That thing where you worry about losing me." "Jake, I'm not going anywhere. My mother visiting doesn't change how I feel about you." "About us, I know," I said, trying to believe it. But the worry lingered, growing worse as August approached. I became short-tempered, withdrawing into myself. Ethan tried to reach me, but I pulled away, building walls I'd promised I wouldn't build. One evening, Ethan found me in the barn, staring at nothing. "Talk to me," he said. "Nothing to talk about." "Bullshit." He moved in front of me, forcing me to meet his eyes. "You've been distant for weeks. Ever since Mom said she wanted to visit. What's going on? What if she changes your mind?" The words burst out. "What if she convinces you that this is wrong, that you should go home, get back on track with your original life plan?" "My original life plan involved hiding who I was and being miserable," Ethan said sharply. "Is that what you want for me?" "Of course not." "Then what? You think I'm going to throw away everything we've built because my mother shows up for a weekend?" He stepped closer, anger and hurt warring in his expression. "Do you really have that little faith in me?" "In us you're young," I said. "You haven't experienced enough of the world to know, don't." His voice cut like a blade. "Don't use my age as a weapon. Not now." "Not when we've moved past that, have we?" I challenged. "Or have I just been waiting for you to realize you can do better?" Ethan recoiled like I'd struck him. "You really believe that? After everything? I'm a 37-year-old rancher with a failed marriage and nothing special to offer. You're brilliant and kind and have your whole life ahead of you. Eventually, you're going to wake up and see that." "Stop," Ethan said, voice shaking. "Stop putting words in my head and feelings in my heart that aren't there. I know my own mind, Jake. I know what I want. And what I want is used, stubborn, self-sabotaging, infuriating you. But I can't fight for us all by myself." He turned and walked out of the barn, and I let him go. It's wrapped up in my own fear to see what I was doing. That night I slept or tried to sleep in the barn. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's face, the hurt and anger and disappointment. I'd done exactly what I'd promised not to do. I'd pushed him away to protect myself from potential pain. Dawn was breaking when I heard the barn door open. Ethan stood, silhouetted against the rising sun, 2 mugs of coffee in his hands. "I'm still mad at you," he said, handing me one. "You should be. But I also love you. And that means working through the hard stuff instead of running away." He sat beside me on the hay bale. "My whole life people have told me who I should be, what I should want. My parents, teachers, pastors. Everyone had an opinion about my life except me." I listened, shame burning in my throat. "When I met you, for the first time, someone asked me what I wanted, what I thought, what I dreamed about. You gave me space to figure out who I am." He turned to face me. "So when you doubt my choices, when you assume I don't know my own heart, you're doing the same thing they did. You're deciding for me." "I'm sorry," I said roughly. "You're right. I've been an ass." "Yeah, you have," he agreed. "But I get it. You're scared. I'm scared too. This thing between us, it's big. It's real. And real things can hurt us. But Jake, the possibility of pain doesn't mean we should run from happiness." I set down my coffee and pulled him close, burying my face in his hair. "I don't deserve you." "It's probably not," he said, but I could hear the smile in his voice. "Lucky for you, I'm choosing you anyway." We sat like that as the sun rose, the ranch waking up around us. Scout found us eventually, nosing between us until we both laughed and made room for her. "I'm going to mess up again," I warned. "I know. So will I. We'll figure it out. He kissed my jaw, soft and forgiving. Together, remember? Together, I agreed. When Ethan's mother arrived in mid-August, I was as ready as I could be. Linda was a small woman with Ethan's eyes and a nervous energy that filled the kitchen as she clutched her coffee cup. "The ranch is beautiful," she said, making conversation. "Thank you," I replied. Staying polite but distant, Ethan gave me a look that clearly said, "Be nice," so I tried. "Would you like to see the horses?" We toured the property, Linda asking careful questions about the work, about Ethan's classes, about everything except what we all knew she'd come to discuss. Finally, as we stood by the pasture watching the horses graze, she took a breath. "I failed you," she said, looking at Ethan. When you needed me to stand up for you, I didn't. I was scared and confused, and I let you walk out that door without fighting for you." Ethan's hand found mine, gripping tight. "Why didn't you?" I told myself I was keeping the peace, that your father would calm down and we'd work it out. But the truth is, I was a coward. The tears tracked down her face. I was raised to believe that being gay was wrong, and even though I know better now, in that moment, I froze, and you paid the price. "Mom, let me finish," she said. "I've been doing a lot of reading. Talk to our pastor, the new one, after your father and I switched churches. I've been learning about what it means to truly love your child, all of them, exactly as they are." She turned to me. "Jake, thank you for taking care of my son when I didn't, for giving him a home and safety," and her voice broke. "And love? He deserves all of that and more," I said quietly. "He does," she agreed. She looked back at Ethan. "I know I can't undo the hurt, but I want to try to build something new, if you'll let me." Ethan was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. "What about Dad? Your father is... It's going to take him more time, maybe a lot more time. But that's his journey, not mine. I'm here because I choose to be. Because you're my son, and I love you, and nothing not your father's fear, not my own ignorance. Nothing's more important than that." Ethan pulled away from me and stepped into his mother's arms. They held each other, both crying, and I turned away to give them privacy, my own eyes stinging. Linda stayed for 2 days. It was tentative and sometimes awkward, but it was healing too. On her last morning, she pulled me aside. "Take care of him," she said. "Always," I promised. "He talks about you like you hung the moon, and the way you look at him." She smiled through fresh tears. "A mother knows. You love my boy." "I do. More than anything." "Good," she said. That's all I needed to know. After she left, Ethan found me in the barn, leaning against Rosie's stall. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his cheek against my back. "Thank you," he said, "for being here, for supporting me through that. How do you feel?" "Like maybe some things can be repaired after all," he said. "It's not perfect, and it might never be, but it's something. It's hope." I turned in his arms, cupping his face. "I'm proud of you. For being brave enough to let her in again." "I learned from the best," he said, then kissed me. Soft and sweet and full of gratitude, fall painted the ranch in golds and reds. Ethan's first semester was in full swing, and between his classes and ranch work, we were both constantly busy. But we carved out time for each other: morning coffee on the porch, evening rides through the property, nights curled up together watching the fire. The idea of offering therapeutic riding experiences for LGBTQ+ youth kept growing. We met with Jamie and others from the community, slowly building a plan. It wouldn't be anything big at first, maybe a weekend program once a month, but the more we discussed it, the more excited we became. "We could provide a safe space," Ethan said, eyes bright. "Somewhere kids could be themselves and work through trauma with the horses. Studies show equine therapy is incredibly effective. I know, I said, grinning. You've told me about 6 times. Sorry, he said, laughing. I'm just excited. Don't apologize. Your passion is one of the things I love about you. He kissed me, quick and joyful. We're really doing this. Building something that matters? We are, I agreed. In October, we made it official. Ethan's belongings, which had been in the guest room for the sake of appearances, moved into my bedroom. It was a small change, but it felt monumental, a public declaration that this was permanent, that we were building a life together that night. Lying in bed with Ethan curled against my side, I felt a peace I'd never known. His breathing evened out as he drifted to sleep, and I ran my fingers through his hair, marveling at how far we'd come from that Christmas Eve at the bus station. I love you, I whispered, too quiet to wake him. Love you too, he mumbled. Not quite asleep after all. I smiled into the darkness and held him closer. We celebrated Thanksgiving with Sarah and Tyler, along with some other neighbors. Ethan charmed everyone, telling stories about the horses and our plans for the program. Tyler, who'd become a genuine friend, raised his glass. 2 new beginnings. He said 2 found families, Sarah added. To home, Ethan said, looking at me. I finished, and everyone drank. Later, as we drove back under a sky full of stars, Ethan took my hand. Thank you for this, all of it. A year ago, I had nothing. Now, I have everything. You gave me everything too, I said. Purpose, joy, a reason to believe in second chances. 3rd chances, he corrected. 4th, if you count. I pulled over to the side of the road, laughing. What are you doing? This, I said, and kissed him until we were both breathless. When Christmas Eve rolled around again, we stood at the same bus station where we'd met. We'd come to volunteer, serving hot coffee and sandwiches to travelers. But I found myself watching the benches, looking for scared kids who needed help. See anyone? Ethan asked, following my gaze. Not tonight, I said. But if I do, we'll bring them home, Ethan finished. Give them what you gave me. I pulled him close, right there in public, and kissed the top of his head. What we gave each other, I corrected. As midnight approached and our volunteer shift ended, we drove back to the ranch. The house glowed with Christmas lights, and inside, presents sat under the trees. Small things, thoughtful things. Tokens of how well we'd come to know each other. Make a wish, Ethan said as we stood on the porch. Looking at the stars, I don't need to, I said. Everything I've ever wanted is right here, Sap, he teased. But his eyes were shining. You're Sap, I corrected. Yeah, he agreed, smiling that smile that never failed to stop my heart. Mine. We went inside, into the warmth and light, into the home we built together. Scout greeted us with enthusiastic barks, and from the barn, I could hear the horses settling for the night. Everything was exactly as it should be. Later, lying in bed with Ethan's head on my chest, I thought about the man I'd been a year ago, only going through the motions, convinced that the best parts of his life were behind him. And I thought about the scared kid at the bus station who'd believed he had nothing left to live for. What are you thinking about? Ethan murmured. About how one decision can change everything, I said. About how stopping to check on someone can save 2 lives instead of 1. He propped himself up on his elbow, looking down at me. You saved me, Jake. No, I said, tucking a strand of hair behind his ear. We saved each other. He kissed me, slow and deep, and I wrapped my arms around him, holding tight to this precious, unexpected gift. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and silent, blanketing the ranch in white. And inside, in the warmth of our room, in the safety of our love, we built new memories to carry forward, The future stretched ahead, uncertain but bright. There would be challenges, there always were. But we'd face them together. This cowboy and his runaway, this found family of two. And that, I thought, as Ethan settled back against me with a contented sigh. That was more than enough. It was everything. The summer sun beat down on the newly constructed arena, where 6 teenagers sat on horseback, learning to post the trot. Ethan moved among them, offering encouragement and gentle corrections. His confidence and expertise evident in every movement. He'd graduated with his associate degree in animal science and was working toward his bachelor's. But his real passion showed in moments like this. "That's it, Marcus." He called to a shy kid who'd arrived 3 months ago with a story not unlike Ethan's own. "Feel the rhythm." I watched from the fence, Scout at my feet, feeling pride swell in my chest. Our program had grown beyond anything we'd imagined. We now hosted 2 weekends a month, with a waiting list of kids eager to participate. We'd hired 2 part-time instructors, and Jamie had come on board to help with administration and counseling. "He's good at this," Sarah said, joining me at the fence. "He is," I agreed. "You both are. You're changing lives." I thought about the letters we'd received from former participants, about the parents who'd thanked us through tears, about the kids who'd found community and healing here. It's important work. "Speaking of important," Sarah said, eyeing me, "Tyler mentioned he saw you at the jewelry store in town." I fought a smile. "Maybe Jake Armstrong? Are you planning what I think you're planning?" "Maybe," I repeated. She laughed and squeezed my arm. "He's going to say yes, you know." "I hope so," I said, watching as Ethan F5 Marcus after a particularly good lap. He's already given me more than I ever dreamed of having. But I want to make it official. Want everyone to know that he's mine and I'm his. "You're good for each other," Sarah said. "I see it every time you're together. The way you ground him, the way he brings light into your life. That's the real deal." Later that evening, after the kids had been picked up and the barn was settled for the night, I found Ethan on our porch, the same spot where we'd stood so many times before. Watching the sun set over the ranch, I said, joining him. "Hey yourself," he replied, leaning into me when I wrapped my arm around his shoulders. "Good day, the best," I agreed. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Anything," he said, turning to look at me. I took a breath, suddenly more nervous than I'd been in years. But when I looked into his eyes, those same eyes that had looked at me with fear and hope at a bus station 2 years ago, I knew. "I'm not always going to get things right," I started. "I'm going to be stubborn and overprotective and probably drive you crazy sometimes. But I promise to always be honest with you, to always respect your choices, to always stand beside you, no matter what." Ethan's eyes widened as I pulled the small box from my pocket and dropped to one knee. "Ethan, you've given me a second chance at happiness, at love, at life. You've made this ranch a home. You've made me a better man. And I want to spend every day for the rest of my life earning the gift of your love." I opened the box, revealing a simple silver band. "Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down his face as he nodded, pulling me to my feet. "Yes," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Yes, yes, yes." I slipped the ring on his finger, and he kissed me with a fierce joy that took my breath away. When we finally pulled apart, both grinning like fools, the sun had finished setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. "I love you," Ethan said. "Thank you for stopping at that bus station." "Thank you for getting in my truck," I replied. "Best decision I ever made," he said. "Second best," I corrected, holding up his hand to admire the ring. He laughed bright and free and kissed me again under the emerging stars. And somewhere in the distance, the horses whinnied their approval, Scout barked her joy. And the ranch, our home. Our future settled into peaceful evening quiet. We'd started with nothing but hope and a chance meeting. We'd built a life, a love, a family, and standing there on the porch, Ethan's hand in mine, I knew that every hard moment, every fear overcome, every risk taken had been worth it. This was home. He was home. And together, we were complete. The end.